Welcome everyone to this episode of Kentwood Voices. I'm looking forward today to talking with one of our parent and child teams. We have many of those at Kentwood because we have such a legacy of bringing up the younger generations. And this time we're talking with a team out of our Northern Properties office, Paula King and Matt King. Paula and I have worked together for about 22 years, I believe. Paula moved to Colorado from LA. She's been in real estate 45 years and with Kentwood for well over 20. Welcome, Paula.
Thank you.
And
Hi.
Matt, I think I've watched you grow up. I remember when you were in high school, you were playing baseball. Matt graduated from Niwot High School. And then after college, he moved around a little bit like 20-somethings do, came back to the state of Colorado, and then recently, 10 or less than 10 years ago, joined Paula. How many?
10 this May.
10 years. That's what I thought. I thought it was about 10 years. I can't believe it's been a decade. So Paula and Matt have been the King team now, operating as the King team for a number of years. And they moved from our Cherry Creek office up to our Northern Properties office a couple of years ago, 2 years ago. So welcome, Matt.
Hello.
Hello. And this is going to be a fun conversation because I'm looking forward to hearing about your experience in the Boulder, Niwot, Erie region where you live and tend to work. I'm interested in hearing your experience about working together as family members, and then just kind of the catalyst of what got you into real estate. So let's start with you, Paula. What was that catalyst? You've been in real estate 45 years. You started in LA. What got you into real estate, and what interesting background from your childhood or from growing up or from past business experiences do you bring to your practice?
Well, I was living in LA. I moved there when I was 21, and I was working in the entertainment industry at the studios. And I had been there for probably about 7 years, and I just wanted out of there. So I loved LA, but it kind of gotten over that part of it. And I was working actually at the animal shelter in San Fernando Valley as a volunteer. And a friend of mine said that she was going to get her real estate license. And I thought, real estate license, I love looking at houses. I love sales. I love people, talking to people. And I thought, I'll try that too. Well, she did not get her license, and I went ahead and got mine. And it was just the perfect fit for me. I absolutely loved it. Worked for a company in Studio City and started selling. The first 6 weeks, I didn't realize this was unusual, but I sold 3 homes, and it's just been great ever since. But my father was a salesman. Very friendly. I worked when I was at college in the University of Kentucky. I worked at one of the bookstores, and I loved meeting people there. So I think it was all of that, just working with people. It never occurred to me that that would be a field I might enjoy, but it has been fantastic.
That's such a kind of a through line in so many people's story, that someone they knew was the catalyst to them getting their license. They hadn't thought about it growing up or in school. It's not a career you typically aspire to. It's one you fall into, but it's such a good profession.
Yes, and I also, when I was in college, I took a lot of secretarial courses. So, the typing and the steno work and all of that kind of helped me too in being organized.
Yeah, you do have to be organized. That's great. So Matt, besides having family members, more than one family member in real estate, what was the catalyst to get you into real estate, and what do you bring from your background?
Well, it was, I was about in my mid-20s, and I was in LA at a job that was pretty stressful. I was working probably 70 or 80 hours a week, and just was not an enjoyable experience. And so I think my mom saw that, and she was getting busier. We were kind of coming out of the, out of the downturn, and she said, I could really use some help in real estate. And I'd always thought about it. Obviously, she's been in it my entire life. My dad was in it. I mean, their friends are all in it. So it was something that I'd been around growing up, and it was always something in the back of my mind. But when you're young, you're always like, well, I want to do something different. I want to try something else. But the realization of working these crazy hours where I was working 6, sometimes 7 days a week straight, that it was just not right for me. And thinking about, my parents always came to my games, always were able to find time for me. And I just said, maybe it's time to really think to take real estate seriously. So left the job in LA and moved back to Colorado, and immediately started classes. And then within a couple months was working with my mom, and it was a great experience. It was fun kind of growing up in that having so many different people with this same background in real estate, but everyone has different points of view of how to do it. So kind of utilize that while I was growing up, of taking different points of view with how I would go about my business. It was interesting when I was first starting too, because naturally when everyone found out I was getting into real estate, all the friends and family started calling, and all the pointers. My favorite was one of my dad's best friends continued to tell me to start door knocking, and cold calling. He said, pull out the yellow pages. And that was a hard one to continue to tell him that no, that's not going to happen. But it was, I felt it was a great decision at the time, just to get back home and get settled, and and helping. And it was right when we got back, I was able to help my mom kind of continue this sprint out of the downturn. And it was I don't regret it. So we're every year, we've been together 10 years now. I think every year we've surpassed the year before in volume, and it's just been great.
And now you're a new dad. So that's so interesting that you said that your parents could go to your games and participate in your childhood. That's exactly why I got into real estate. I was a single mom, but I wanted to be able to see my son at his class parties or go on a field trip and not be chained to an office and not leave him in daycare all day long. And I knew I'd work evenings and weekends, but that I'd have some flexibility. And it seems like that was a benefit to you in your childhood. So you're going to hopefully take that to your daughter's life too.
Yeah, it's funny because I was 24, 25, which, that most people are adults at that time. I wasn't, but I still, that was something I did think about. Was it's like, okay, eventually I'm going to have kids. And if I stay in this job, I'm looking at the guy that owned the company was just the one person above me. And there was, I think over 100 employees, that I managed. And it was like, okay, so if I continue this is going to be my life. The 70-hour work weeks, I got to the work when it was dark, went home a lot when it was dark, especially come winter time. And it wasn't awesome. And I'm glad I got out when I did, because I found out a couple months after I left, they were going to offer me, they bought a new company up in Sacramento, and they were going to offer me like ownership stocks and to take it over. But I never would have been able to see my family at that point.
Well, and you know what? Denver's a lot better than Sacramento. So
Yeah, that was,
that's good. So Matt, let's stick with you for now and then go on to the next question I have for you, which is, in the last 5 years, what new belief or new behavior has positively impacted your life?
When I first started, I think especially I took this in real estate, was that I think everything was kind of, if something was going bad, you would start to panic. And I didn't see that light at the end of the tunnel. But I learned pretty quickly that things are fixable. And that's something that I've put very heavily into my own expertise in this field, because things are going to happen during a transaction. It just does. And you have to be able to, you need to be there for your clients to show them that you're going to get through it. You need to find ways to work through it. And basically I've utilized that in my business life, that, something's going wrong. No one's panic. We're going to fix this, and we're going to get to the closing table. And so that's been a big benefit to me. And it's fun because still relatively on the younger side when it comes to this business. And so you get a lot of more experienced brokers out there that a deal starts to go sideways or something and they're panicking and all that. And it's nice to just kind of say, hey, we've got a solution. We're going to find it. Let's just, everyone calm down. It's fixable. And that's, very rarely, I don't think I can count on more than one hand, the amount of deals that I've had fall in those 10 years.
So I guess we can sum that up to say problem solving is really a behavior that you lean on.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's what a lot of successful brokers use as a tool in their toolkit, problem solving. Paula, what about you? So what new habit, behavior has most impacted you in the last 5 years?
Well, kind of going along with what Matt was saying is, and we've had such a crazy market the last few years, and I'm a true believer in everything happens for a reason. And that's something I stress a lot to my clients for the last 5 years. For instance, I had a deal recently where it ended up 8 offers. We offered way over asking, but somebody was above that. They offered all cash, which we couldn't compete with because we weren't. And my client was disappointed, but she and I both, it's like everything happens for a reason. And yesterday I found her the absolutely perfect house. It was better than the first one. And we put in an offer last night, and I should hear any minute whether we have it, but I think we do. But I just have a very positive attitude, and my clients, I think, really appreciate that. And you really have to do that in these times because it is such a crazy market, and it's possible you just don't get that house that you really want, but there's another one out there. So positive thinking, yeah, I think is.
And I think that's a great message to those buyers out there, because most buyers are going to have to, right now, with the way inventory is, come to terms with the idea that they might be making many offers before they get the house. So to just know that the next one is around the corner at some point, and more often than not, they end up liking that house the best or better.
Correct.
Yeah.
And she's lucky too, because I have a client that sent me that house. They're not here yet. So they're not coming for another week or two, but they sent me that house. They're like, oh, we like this house. Like, oh.
It'll be gone. The King team is going to swallow up that inventory. So, good. So what purchase of $500 or less, Paula, has positively impacted your life in the last 6 months?
Oh my gosh, this is a really silly one, but as you said, Matt's a new dad. So my daughter-in-law told me about Facebook Marketplace, and I went on there and bought a wonderful crib and changing table for my house. And I think just that has been my favorite purchase. I got it for $75, I think. It's in my house, and I have the baby over quite a bit, and it's brought me incredible pleasure. So I think that's probably it.
I love that. And remind me your grandma name. Is it Mimi? What is it?
Well, I just always say grandma. David's Papa. That's my husband, Papa. But so far, I'm just grandma.
Grandma. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's good. So Matt, what about you? Your $500 or less purchase that's impacted you positively?
I'm not big on purchasing things. I buy a lot of food. That's kind of my thing, is I like to go out and treat myself. That's how I do that. But in the last 6 months, I would really say there's been 2 things that I did. I got an Audible account, which I want to start reading more. So I got that, and I've really enjoyed it. Granted, not in the car as much this time of year, since business generally slows down around the holidays and all that. But it was great, kind of knocked off some books that I was interested in, and I've picked out a few for the year ahead, or a couple for the year ahead. And then the other thing I got was I'd already bought a system and all that, but I've purchased more of them, accessories for it, and they're hue lights. So I don't know if you're, with the smart house and all that. I have kind of my man cave, as you might call it, down in the basement, and I've got big screen TV and all that. But when you watch TV, there's like a lot of bright light, a lot of glare, and all that, or you got to turn all the lights off. But I went and put all hue lights down in the basement, and it's been great because you now can do like a theater setting and all that. I love that. And so it's enjoyable to watch sports down there. And also, because I did it in a couple other rooms, when you have a baby and it's like, oh, it's time to try to get it to sleep, you just, turn down the lights really quick, and you can dim them without going straight in the dark. So that was, that's been my best purchase so far.
That's good. So you can get her melatonin kind of building up in the early evening by dimming your lights. I love this question because I get such interesting answers. Like hue lights is not one that I had heard. I did hear a rain shower the other day. Someone said that she had switched out her shower head during COVID and put in a rain shower, and she just loves standing under it. So it's great to hear what people are finding valuable, because then we can put these tips out to the world, and someone might really like these hue lights. I might check it out too.
They're
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, it's just, you can set scenes, set moods, and it's cool. You can walk in and and you just push a button on your phone, and it can, you can set a scene for theater, or just you can dim certain lights in certain parts of the house, and so you don't. That's the thing. It's like you said, for melatonin for my daughter, I necessarily don't want to go to sleep at 7 o'clock at night or start getting tired. So that's what I think. I think this is a really cool thing that I kind of thought was unnecessary for years when you see it pop up online, but I will say it's kind of a game changer.
That's fascinating. So there you go. Okay, so I want to talk about something that isn't in the questions that we sort of pre-reviewed, but something Paula said early in the intro really reminded me of this for you. And that is that you volunteered. You volunteered at the animal shelter. And our Kentwood ethos and our Kentwood brokers are so invested in our communities. The fact that you were volunteering in your 20s already just really speaks a lot to your character of wanting to help your community. And then after you talk about that experience or whatever else you want to about your community involvement, Matt, I would love to hear you talk about what you and Melissa have done with the dancing and the fundraisers and so forth. And you did something really cool before COVID for your community of little girls before you were even a dad. But Paula, let's talk about community involvement and why that was important to you even 40 years ago.
I cannot sit idly when at that time I was on unemployment because I was looking for a job and I was taking my classes, and I just cannot sit around. And I've always felt that giving back to your community was very, very important. And I loved animals. So it was a wonderful experience. I ended up with a couple of dogs too, of course, but it was a great experience. And then I live as Matt does, a little town called Erie, Colorado. And for a few years, I was on the Historic Preservation Board for the town, which was also a very interesting experience. There are various things that we've done with the company too, delivering food during the holidays as we have. But I just think it's so important that we should give back. We are so lucky that we have what we have, quite honestly. And there are a lot of people that don't. And so I just think it's important. It's just something that's part of your MO. So.
Yeah, that reminds me, we used to do the Meals on Wheels every year. Right. At the holidays around Thanksgiving. We haven't done that in 2 years. So after COVID, maybe we'll try to get back and help Volunteers of America, because that was a fun way to build team and help the community.
Yeah, and then during the holidays too, at Christmas time, Kentwood picks out families to help support, and couple years ago, there's a home in Denver, a house where kids that are trying to get out of abusive relationships, they have a home for about 6 of the boys, and we took and supplied their entire Christmas, which was, they gave us a list, and that was really wonderful too. So I think if you have a lot, you need to give back. You just have to.
Yeah, yeah, especially now more than ever.
Yes.
Matt, what about you? You've done quite a bit yourself.
Yeah, as you mentioned, the big thing that we do right now for our community is we do this, the Nutcracker High Tea in our neighborhood. It's only for community members. We put it together. And then, so last year at the start of it, we basically, it's free to the first couple hundred people that sign up for it. However, if we did charge an admission fee last time, and that was you had to bring canned goods for the Erie Food Bank. So that will be the new rule going forward for it. So it was nice, you know, for the first year of doing. We're still in the early stages of doing this for a once a year event. You know, we've done it twice. Obviously, this year sadly did get canceled. Kind of worked out the kinks of the first year in year 2, but we had my trunk of my SUV was completely full of canned goods for the food bank, which was really awesome. I have a couple of goals that once I kind of had gotten settled, I wanted to start doing like Habitat for Humanity, and like my mom, I wanted to volunteer at an animal sanctuary in there's one in Kingsburg called the Wildlife Animal Sanctuary, which I had been kicking around the idea of doing it before COVID, and then that fell through. So it's a really wonderful site. If you've never been, and I'm hoping to get there. But the problem is I'm the same way as my mom. I'll probably bring home a pet or two, so you know, a couple tigers, a bear or two. So
A lion.
I'll put them in better homes than the ones they came from. But yeah.
That's great. So do you have, Matt, do you have a favorite quote or a favorite saying or something that helps keep you grounded?
Basically, it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, and I never really had many quotes that kind of did that. But it's funny because a couple of weeks ago, I was talking about with someone, and something that agreed about for the year ahead was to don't sweat the small stuff. And so that's what I'm trying to implement when we go into 2021, because it's been utilized well in my business, but then I can allow it to kind of impact me personally. I don't allow my clients to see it, or you know, other brokers to see if there is, you know, what is it, the duck, you know, you see it on the surface, it's calm and steady, but underneath it's churning. And that was always kind of me. And it's the realization of, hey, you can be this problem solver. You can. Don't let it eat you up inside. So that is going to be my goal for this year, is to implement the don't sweat the small stuff.
Put that on a sticky note on your computer. Look at it.
Yeah, I did. I'm a huge West Wing fan, and so Toby in one of the episodes, you know, he's got like this goal book, and so I thought that was a great idea. So it's that goes in the goal book, something that you keep on you at all times, which I don't have it on me now, but yeah.
It's in the vicinity.
Yeah.
Paula, what about you? Do you have a quote or a saying that
I do. I have one that I use with my sellers a lot, but it transfers over to your life, which is you never have a second chance to make a first impression. And someone said that to me once, and I thought, that is so true. So when you're selling a house, you want it to, from the front door, it should be welcoming, it should look good, and so that the buyer is excited about walking through that door. And it goes on in life too, that when you meet someone, you know, this is your chance. this is your chance in meeting a client, a friend, a person, whoever, on the person on the street, to make a good impression the first time. So
that's a good tip for sellers.
mm-hmm.
Get the house ready and shown. And right now it feels like, and for a few years, buyers want it to be HGTV ready. They want it to look like what they saw on TV.
Yeah.
So they don't want to have to do work. So this is a great quote, just in life and also in for your sellers and listings. So have you had a failure, Paula? Has there been any kind of a failure or what felt like a failure that then later set you up for success?
You know, this is one I've been thinking about because luckily, I mean, I really honestly have not had too many failures in my life, thank goodness. But I think when the downturn happened in 2008, I think that we had just redone a house, built this beautiful house, which you've seen, Gretchen, and it was just too much to take care of. I mean, the market was, I don't know if I'd sold a house in 8 months, you know, it was really slow. And the cost of keeping up this house was tremendous. And so we ended up selling it, which seemed like that would assume could feel like a failure because we'd been rebuilding it for a year and owned it for a couple years. So after that, we moved into the house that I'm presently living in and thinking that we would buy it and flip it, resell it. And I have loved it. It has been incredible. And in living here, it became my farm. So I started selling homes in this neighborhood, and it has been the best thing that's ever happened to me. I love the neighborhood, which is called Erie Village. I do the local directory in here. We've had 50 sales in here since I moved here in the last 12 years. So that it just turned around to be something that was a wonderful thing for me. So I suppose that's the only thing that I can think of.
That's a great lesson, though, in turning lemons into lemonade. That was a beautiful house. In fact, when I picture you, I still picture you sitting in that house because that's the house I remember.
It was a great house, and now it's somebody else's.
Yep. And someone said to me once, you never really own your house. You're just borrowing it from the next people that are going to live there.
Here you go.
There you go. You built a beautiful house for them. Matt, what about you? Are there any failures or apparent failures that later turned into success or that you used as a learning tool?
You know, it's funny because I really haven't had like that massive breakdown or falling apart that has really really impacted me where I've had to carry myself or pick myself up. But I'll be honest, like when COVID first hit, it was one of those things where I was really thinking, okay, I'm about to break through and have this monster year. I had a whole bunch of business lined up, a lot of clients, a lot of sellers and buyers for the year. And within 2 weeks of the lockdown, I had gone from 14 active clients to 0. And that was, in terms of normal year, that would kind of, you go, okay, that stinks. But at the same time, I had a wife who was, pregnant with our first baby. And it was kind of one of those things where it was just like, this probably could not have happened at a worse time. And so it basically got me out to hustle and pick myself up a bit more. And I ended up still having a great year. I ended up, just working the entire third and fourth quarter. But it showed me, with not just letting the things come to you, because a lot of that had happened where it was just a lot of people just had come to me and it was old clients coming back. That if I got out there and really push myself even just a little bit, good things can happen. And so it was a great end of the year, and hopefully something doesn't happen again, because it's the same thing as last year where it's like, oh, I've got a number of people a number of clients that are all doing this. And what's awesome is it's that transitional phase for a lot of my clients I've sold them a house. Now they're ready for that next move up. So it's that's, that's a good feeling too.
Yeah, but that was scary. It's not as much a failure, but I think that's a great lesson. We all were really concerned in February, well, I guess I'll say March, April, and into May 2020, when the business just literally stopped. And the only time I ever remember that happening was 9/11, where the business just stopped. And we knew it would come back. We didn't know how long it would take. So good for you for just picking yourself back up and going out there and making it happen, because you did end up, both of you, having a terrific year. Paula, I'm going to go back to you now and ask you one of my favorite questions, and that is, what are some bad recommendations, or what is one bad recommendation you hear made to people in our profession? And this can be either made to clients or made to new brokers.
Made to clients. Well, the thing that comes to mind is not from either of those sources, but from a friend of the buyer, where they tell them, you know what, interest rates are going to come down. Housing prices are going to come down. I've been reading it in this, or I've been reading in that, or it might even be the buyer themselves that say that. So I'm going to wait. And I think that overcoming that situation takes a little bit of skill, but it's interest rates. When interest rates go up, I mean, these interest rates are so incredible. I went for 10 years where if you had a 10% interest rate, that was a good thing. And I remember when we moved here in 94 and we got an interest rate that was below 9.5%. And that was amazing. So these interest rates are incredible. Prices keep on going up. It's the best investment you can make. So don't, just go ahead and just jump in, because these people that have been, are thinking on that, if they'd bought a year ago, they come back and go, oh my gosh, the prices are so much higher. They're 10% higher. That's right, they are. So listening to outside sources and people that tell you this is, I think that's one of the things that I think of.
Yeah, I agree. For 11 years, we've been hearing people say, oh, prices are going to go down next year, and they don't.
Best investment that you can make. Matt bought his first house a few years in, and and he climbed over a fence to get in the backyard because the wrong key was put in the lockbox, and had a contract written right then and there, and jumped on it and bought that house. And that little house is now doubled in price, I would say, Matt, in the last 5 years. So, I mean, if you can buy, mm-hmm. And we'll find you a way that you can buy.
Yep, absolutely. Matt, what about you? What bad recommendations have you heard made?
Oh man, for me, it's waiving anything. When you hear other brokers, or even like when you have a listing, you see someone waive an inspection or waive the appraisal. I mean, with the exception of cash deals, I just think that is such a risk to your buyer, to your client. I'm just fully against it. You might get the deal and it might be fine, but you just are putting on a significant, potentially life-altering risk on your buyer. Even, it's a newer house. I've had this happen where, it was a newer house that it was my listing, and, multiple offers, and someone was waiving the inspection. But, new houses have problems just as much as the old ones. And it could be $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 of issues that are waiting for you. And so for me, I've never advised the client to waive inspection, never advised them to waive the appraisal. Now, appraisal gaps, that's fine. I think, if you're getting yourself a couple $1,000s or a few $1,000s, I totally understand it, especially in this market where projections are, you kind of know you've got that safety net. And if the housing price drops significantly, if you've gone a couple thousand or a few $1,000s, brought a couple $1,000s, a few $1,000s of cash to close, there's going to be bigger problems in the end than that. So that has always been my thing, and every few buyers will say that they say, well, I hear about waiving inspections and this, but I think there also folks are getting a little more educated because you're starting to see more don't waive this. Because I've had more people say, well, I've heard of it, but I don't know if I want to do that. Especially, feels like my folks that come from California really, really want an inspection. At no point would they bounce off of it. So that's for me easily the thing I see the most. Where I'm just like,
Yeah, well, and that's why it's so important to have an experienced, savvy broker in your corner and not try to go it alone.
You know, in the end, Matt, when you were talking about that too, one thing that it reminded me of is sewer scoping. I had a new home that I suggested to my buyer to have a sewer scope, and we were talking about it during a walkthrough with the representative for the builder, and he said, "Oh no, don't have a walkthrough. These are new. We've built 90 of these. No sewer issues." And my client said, "Oh, okay, I won't have that." He moved in, and the next day the sewer backed up. And I called him and I said, "How's everything going?" He said, "You won't believe this." He said, "What you suggested that we do, we didn't do, and this is what happened." So the builder took care of it, but they just moved in and there was raw sewage in their finished basement of their $800,000 home. Yeah.
Yeah, I sold a new house once years ago. We did a sewer scope only to find out they hadn't connected the sewer line to the main. So
there you go.
Inspections on new construction are important, and not waiving inspections is vital. So I think that's really good advice. Unless you're a handyman or you own a handyman's shop and you can fix everything you find. But some of these things, building out digging up a sewer line that's under your basement or under your driveway can be $10,000 to $20,000. It's no joke.
Right.
Yeah.
So, okay, I'm going to go to the last question. Oh, Matt?
I was going to say, yeah, that was, we go back to the last question. That was the same thing where when COVID hit, I found out my investment property needed a new sewer line. So it's not fun. It's not a fun thing to have to need.
So many people have found that out while working from home because we're all home so much more. We're taxing our sewer systems, more water, and more people home all day long. So I've been hearing this story frequently. Okay, last question. In the last 5 years, what have you become better at saying no to, Paula?
Oh boy. Spam calls. I don't ask for those. I think that I'm just when I'm dealing with other brokers and they're trying to manipulate to get the best deal for their buyers, I think I'm better at saying no, this is why, and kind of negotiating out of that is probably the best thing, is just experience after a while, not just accepting what the other person's saying for fact. So
yeah, that's good. And Matt, what about you?
Actually, that's pretty much the same answer for me, is not letting the other broker dictate where things are going is definitely one of them. I mean, another one being that I've been in the business now for 10 years. You occasionally have to say no to your clients. Or I kind of one of my problems is a client would pick a house out and I knew it wasn't anything that they wanted. Not necessarily telling them no, but explaining to them why this house is not a good idea for them, instead of us going out and potentially just, you get to the house and they immediately walk up and go, oh no. That's kind of been the easiest thing. Or yeah.
Mm-hmm. That's good. Well, do you want to sum it up? Do you have anything you want to say to the viewers out there before we wrap up and say goodbye?
It's a great time to buy a home. There still are houses out there. I think Matt and I work extremely well together. We really put our clients' best interest first. I don't think I've ever sold a house that I didn't feel that it was a good buy for my client. Like Matt was just saying, I'm very honest with my clients. And I just had a deal that closed a couple weeks ago, and my client said, I have heard such horror stories about buying a house, and this was the easiest deal that I have ever done. If I'd known this, because she was in her 40s, I would have bought a house before this. This was a first-time buyer. So we try really hard to make this an enjoyable, easy process for our clients. And I think that's probably why we've been successful in working with Kentwood. That's just an awesome support for us. So give us a call.
Great. Matt?
She said it's a great time to buy. It's also a great time to sell if you're thinking of making that next step up. A lot of folks have equity in their houses now. With interest rates as low as they are, some people don't even realize they could take that step up to the next house. It's a little bit bigger yard, something that may work for them a little bit better, and end up having the same payments. So it's a great time to buy, great time to sell.
That's great. And if you're in Boulder, Niwot, Erie, Central Denver, Fort Collins, Windsor, Loveland, this is the team to call, Matt and Paula King at Kentwood Northern Properties. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Thanks, Paula. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you, Gretchen.